What's up guys, it's Mercury and welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet video. Today we have a little bit of a different format. I'm going to be analyzing a team that I made that's kind of a hard Trick Room team with Ursaluna and Cresselia. And today we're going to be actually doing something a little bit different and going on Pokemon Showdown. Now if you guys don't know what Pokemon Showdown is, it's an app or a program essentially where you can just have way quicker Pokemon battles than you normally would, like playing in game. You can, instead of having to like train your Pokemon and stuff, you can just input EVs. It's a great battle simulator and it's a great way to get better at VGC instead of just trying to like constantly play on cart, and that can take some time as well sometimes. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. Hope you guys will like it. If you do like the content, please like and subscribe as well. And yeah, let's just get straight into it. So today we've got a Cresselia Ursaluna team that I made. It did take some inspiration from a couple of teams that I've seen out there, like typical Cresselia Ursaluna teams. I feel like it's kind of hard to make a really unique team nowadays, but you can definitely have some variety in your sets and stuff. So let's talk about Cresselia first. Cresselia, I feel like, is a Pokemon that used to have a different role. It used to be a really bulky Pokemon that would sometimes set up, and I guess you could go for like Calm Mind sets and stuff, but it's a great Trick Room setter now, and since they gave it this new move, Lunar Blessing, it's like the perfect support Pokemon for Ursaluna. Lunar Blessing, if you don't know, will heal yourself and your ally by 25% and all of your status conditions every time you click it. So even if you're poisoned, even if your partner's asleep, you can cure all status, get a nice healing boost. And yeah, it's just an excellent support Pokemon. So the set that I've gone for here is mostly defensive. It's kind of mixed on its defenses. So you got 36 Modest for your EVs there. And that's actually important because it's one of the EV bumps. So if you kind of look at like, or I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, if you look at the EV bumps, if you put in 28 EVs into your special attack, you're going to be at 108, but then as soon as you put in just 8 more, it bumps up by 2 points. So if you guys don't know what EV bumps are, I highly recommend you check out videos like Cloverbell's. He talks a lot about them. A lot of competitive Pokemon will talk about them, but definitely make sure to look into what EV bumps are, because they are important. So anyway, we've got 36 Modest there to hit the EV bump, just a little bit of speed, and then mostly on your defenses is what you're invested into. I like this set because it's Cresselia already has naturally high defenses, even though they did nerf, I think, both of them by 10 base points coming into Scarlet and Violet, but still a great Pokemon. We've got Water Tera here. Water Tera is mostly there for like Surging Strikes on the Rapid Strike Urshifus that might be trying to hit into you because you don't have a Rocky Helmet on this set, or on this team for that matter. Instead, you've got Safety Goggles here, which is super important to the Amoonguss matchup, especially when you're playing closed team sheet. Like if you're playing on ladder and people don't want to accept open team sheets, then it's kind of their loss or whatever it might be. Amoongusses can't Spore you, put you to sleep. They can't Rage Powder you away from potentially attacking into something that you might need to pick up a KO on. So that's pretty important there. But yeah, Cresselia is a great Pokemon overall, and I really like it as well. We've got Lunar Blessing, Trick Room, Ice Beam, and Moonblast, so no Protect or Ally Switch. None of those Ally Switch shenanigans are going to be going on here, but I don't really feel like they're necessary. Ice Beam is super nice for doing well into opposing Dragonites that don't Terastalize. I'm seeing less and less Dragonite on the ladder, and even in-game as well, but you're seeing a lot less like Dragonite Chien-Pao. Like, granted, it is still a really strong strategy, but you can definitely catch them off guard and deal even like 70% or so with an Ice Beam. You don't have like the highest special attack, and obviously it's not same type attack bonus, but you'll still be dealing good damage. And then Moonblast is there for like Urshifus, especially the Dark Urshifu. You can really catch them off guard. I don't know if it one-hit KOs, but I think it almost does. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, the best partner for Cresselia obviously is Ursaluna, so this is a set where I think Terra Ghost is actually the best way to go, because you really don't need Terra Normal, for example, because your Facade already pretty much one-shots everything in the format. A lot of people were like, oh my god, Terra Normal Guts Boosted Facade is going to be crazy on Ursaluna. You really don't need it. You can go for a defensive Terra, you can go for Water even, but we've already got Water on the Cresselia, and then I think on the Iron Hands on this team as well. So I went for Ghost Terra, and this pairs really nicely with Shadow Claw because you have a strong Shadow Claw after you Terastalize. I'm pretty sure it KOs Flutter main even if you don't Terastalize, but it's definitely helpful to do so. And this does well into the matchup of Chien-Pao as well, because they'll often try and go for Sacred Swords or Icicle Crashes, and you're able to Terastalize, get rid of your weakness, so that's super important as well. Yeah, not really much else to say about the Ursaluna there. I feel like Earthquake is way more standard than Headlong Rush. You could go for Headlong Rush, but it's super nice to have Earthquake, because you can use Earthquake into the opposing Pokemon, and then also have your Cresselia on your side or your Dragonite, and you'll be completely immune to Earthquake. So that's absolutely perfect in dealing out a lot of damage. You have a little bit of like defensive investment as well, and a tiny bit of speed, even though you are running in Trick Room, just to potentially outspeed other Cresselias who don't invest at all into speed. So that's important there. We've got an Iron Hands. Now Iron Hands, I feel like it's one of the best Pokemon in the format. There's really not much you can do to one-hit KO this Pokemon. It's absolutely insane in terms of its defenses, and you know, it's got a pretty high attack stat as well, base 140. Like, I don't know what they were thinking with this Pokemon, but they overtuned it so hard. This Pokemon is incredibly strong. You can go for Swords Dance sets and things like that, but I do like the Fake Out set here because sometimes you can lead like Iron Hands and Cresselia to go for like Fake Out Trick Room, for example, or even just go for Fake Out into like a strong attack or whatever you might want to do. But Fake Out's definitely nice to have so that you can potentially get off Lunar Blessings, whatever the case might be. And Heavy Slam is super important on this set because you are able to one-shot pretty much every Flutter main, I think even after you get Intimidated, for example. So if the opponent has an Intimidate user like Gyarados or Landorus, for example, you probably still will be able to pick up the KO on Flutter main with a Heavy Slam. And with max special defense investment plus an Assault Vest, this Pokemon is incredibly tanky. Like, you can survive Dazzling Gleams, you can survive Moonblasts, even several of them. And then you also have Water Terror, obviously, to get around your weaknesses. But you've also got Dragonite. Dragonite's another Pokemon that you don't always need to run alongside its optimal partner, which is Chien-Pao. You can run it on a team like this, and it actually does get decent support from a team like this, because Dragonite, it isn't the fastest Pokemon, so if the opponent has a really fast team, and you're playing under Trick Room, and you do want to set up Trick Room, for example, you can potentially still go with Dragonite. And with the Choice Band set, you've got Terra Flying with Terra Blast. That outputs so much damage. I believe you can one-shot certain Amoonguss builds, unless they're specifically EV'd to survive a Terra Flying Choice Band Moonblast from Max Attack Dragonite. But yeah, overall this Pokemon is incredibly strong. Sometimes you might be in the scenario where you can just click Outrage as well, and that can definitely pick up KOs. But Dragonite, an incredibly strong Pokemon, and we've got Flutter Mane actually that I'm going to talk about first before I talk about Urshifu here, because this Flutter Mane set is important. So you've got Speed Booster with the Flutter Mane, which means that you're probably going to be outrunning a lot of other Flutter Mane, and if that's the case, you can go for something like Icy Wind. Now, Icy Wind is a great form of speed control, despite being 95% accurate. Like, if you miss an Icy Wind, you can't really get mad. I mean, it happens, but with Speed Booster plus Icy Wind, you have almost guaranteed speed control into pretty much the entire format. Unless they obviously go for like a Tailwind and they have like really fast Pokemon already. But this is super nice to pair up with Dragonite, for example, because you can go for Icy Wind. Dragonite doesn't have the best speed stats, so once the opponent's speed stats are lowered, Dragonite will probably outspeed, or at least have a chance to outspeed, given that it gets dropped by 50%. But you have Dazzling Gleam over Moonblast here. I didn't really opt for Moonblast on this set because I was like, I definitely want another spread attack, given that we only have, I think, Earthquake as the other spread attack on the Ursaluna. So it's definitely nice to have Dazzling Gleam. I've been in situations where I really need to get like a KO on something, and all I had was Moonblast, but it would have been nice to chip the other Pokemon as well. So that's why Dazzling Gleam is a great move. I think you should run it on pretty much every Flutter Mane set, pretty standard, and then Shadow Wall Protect as well. The EVs here, Flutter Mane isn't the bulkiest Pokemon, and I don't have too much defense investment, but I believe this EV set allows for Flutter Mane to survive a Surging Strikes from Urshifu that doesn't go for Water Terra, so that's definitely important to have. And speaking of Pokemon that actually get a huge boost when Flutter Mane goes for Icy Wind, that's going to be Urshifu, our final Pokemon in this team. We've got Dark Urshifu with Single Strike, and Terra Dark actually. Now I've gone for a Focus Sash set. It is max speed Jolly. You could go for Adamant, for example, but I do like having that little extra speed to outspeed opposing Urshifu who might be running max speed and not Choice Scarf, for example. But this Pokemon is incredibly strong. Terra Dark Wicked Blow hits like a truck. Same with Sucker Punch, it's really strong. Also great to have like another form, of priority on this team, in addition to like Fake Out and Extreme Speed, for example, from the other Pokemon. But yeah, overall, Urshifu is a great Pokemon. You can run Black Glasses if you want a little bit more damage output, and you don't need to go 252, 252, but given that we're running Focus Sash, you might as well. Like, there's no point in investing in bulk, because you're probably not going to be surviving more than one big hit. So yeah, with that being said, let's just jump into a couple battles here. I've got a bunch preloaded. It's always good to analyze your replays, so we're going to go over that and I hope you guys do like this new format of video, but yeah, without further ado, let's get into that. Alright, so we got this first battle loaded up here, and this is what I love about Pokemon Showdown. You can just save your replays, you can go turn by turn, analyze things really in depth, but yeah, looking at my opponent's team, obviously Trick Room is going to be great here because he doesn't have a lot of slow Pokemon. In fact, I think all of his Pokemon have like a really high speed stat, but it also doesn't look like he has any form of speed control unless his Flutter Mane has Icy Wind as well, but it's really not all that common in most Flutter Manes. So yeah, let's just check out what we led here. So we lead Flutter Mane and Urshifu, which is why I was like, you know what, I know he's got fast Pokemon, but at the same time, let me lead something that can potentially outspeed his Pokemon. I have Focus Sash, so like, if they double up Urshifu, that's the only way they can KO it. But yeah, let's check out what we do here. So, obviously we get our Speed Booster. He goes for Sucker Punch on the Flutter Mane, and I go for Dazzling Gleam. Now, Chien-Pao actually survives this. I assume he had Focus Sash regardless, but it's just crazy that he survived a Dazzling Gleam from this Flutter Mane. I might need to like EV this Flutter Mane a little bit better so that Chien-Pao wouldn't survive if they were running like Life Orb, but I guess Life Orb would KO them anyway, so they go for Sucker Punch, we go for Dazzling Gleam. We get the Wicked Blow off into Chien-Pao just to finish it off. I really wanted to get rid of that thing because it's incredibly strong, and then our own Flutter Mane goes down. But he brings in his own Flutter Mane now, and we bring in Iron Hands. Now this is an excellent scenario because Urshifu is already low health, Iron Hands has a huge attack stat, and we can get the jump on him with Fake Out. There's nothing he can really do about that other than switch out if he wanted to preserve his Urshifu. But he's already at low health, so he might not really need to do that unless he desperately thinks it's like needed for the Pokemon that I might have in the back. And yeah, Urshifu, obviously, with Terra Dark, I'm pretty sure you can just destroy like any Flutter Mane that you might be going up against. So let's see what we do here. We do go for Terra Water out into Iron Hands because I was concerned about like a potential Moonblast or something, but he goes for Dazzling Gleam, which is totally fine. We go down to our Focus Sash, and you can see how little that did to Iron Hands too. We only took 19%. But believe it or not, the Wicked Blow actually didn't KO the Flutter Mane, so this is a case for going like Max Attack Adamant, for example, or running Black Glasses, because with that extra boost, you would definitely pick up the KO. But that's totally fine. Finally, on this next turn, he goes for Terra Ghost with his Dragapult, and I knew that, you know, Dragapult was probably going to be choice banded. Most of them don't run any status moves or protect for that matter. So I was like, okay, this is the perfect opportunity to get some extra value from our Urshifu. Just go for the Sucker Punch and just one-shot that thing. So he goes for Terra Ghost. Didn't really matter. Sucker Punch would KO anyway. And then he gets the Dazzling Gleam onto our team, but it's doing nothing to Iron Hands. And Iron Hands is incredibly strong. So we do win that first match. We didn't use Cresselia or Ursaluna in this one, but this is a great example of a team that you don't always need to use that mode. So it's definitely nice to have some different modes to use with this team. But let's look at another replay here. We've got, I think we did use Cresselia and Ursaluna in this one, but the opponent has a pretty standard team as well. Fire, Water, Grass Core, Amoonguss, Flutter Mane, and then Speed Control. He's got an Intimidate user, which is important to keep in mind as well. So I do like Flutter Mane here, and I do like Cresselia, but let's see what we actually led here. So we led Iron Hands plus Urshifu. This is also a pretty decent lead with the team. One important thing to note here is that sometimes you don't have to lead Cresselia or like worry about getting Trick Room up like right off the bat. You can go for that as like a late game strategy. So I think that's kind of what we did in this game, if I'm remembering correctly. But it's interesting that he was Grassy Seed on Flutter Mane. So he just fakes out my Iron Hands while we do protect our Urshifu, and he actually had Draining Kiss, which is super weird. So he goes for Draining Kiss on the Urshifu, which I was totally fine with. He's already at full health, so I was like, let me just get some damage off into the Rillaboom. He doubles our Urshifu, and we lose Urshifu, unfortunately, but Heavy Slam, because of that Grassy Seed boost to his defense, he was able to survive that. So that just goes to show, like, most of the time, you're going to be one-shotting Flutter Manes. So obviously a little bit of recovery here on all of our Pokemon. Perfect opportunity to bring in Cresselia. He goes for Draining Kiss, but it does, like, nothing into Iron Hands. And yeah, I know he knocked off our Cresselia, got rid of our safety goggles, but that's totally fine. We're able to pick up the KO on Flutter Mane. That's what I found important. And we do set up Trick Room here. The only thing that could, you know, be bad about this is that he has a Amoonguss now, which is going to outspeed everything and probably put something to sleep with Spore, but we kind of got to pick and choose what we want to do here. So he goes for Spore on the Cresselia, having knocked off our safety goggles, unfortunately, and we just go for Drain Punch here because his Pokemon are really not all that threatening in this position. He just goes for a U-turn, which is fine, but our Iron Hands is looking super healthy, and I'm like, what damage does he really have into Iron Hands? He puts it to sleep, so that kind of goes to show he's really only got Earth Power, and look at that, super effective Earth Power, did less than a third. So unfortunately we stay asleep here, but I saw this as the perfect opportunity to just switch out into our Ursaluna, because we wouldn't need to use a turn protecting, for example, to get our Flame Orb active, and I was like, there's no way he spores the Iron Hand slot. So he goes for Pollen Puff, we take a bit of damage on Cresselia, but that's totally fine. He Earth Powers that slot, but we take less than a quarter, and we get our Flame Orb active. So he protects the Heatran, and he goes for Leaf Storm, which I did not expect. So I completely thought that, like, this Amoonguss was just going to be a standard support one, but he caught me off guard with Leaf Storm, and it did like 65%. So if he had gotten the KO on Ursaluna there, we would have been in a way worse spot. But hopefully we wake up with Cresselia here. We go for Earthquake. Obviously, it doesn't... it gets reduced in power in terms of the Grassy Surge. If you guys don't know, Grassy Surge will reduce the power of Earthquake. But we're able to get a Lunar Blessing off here. And now he's down to his last two Pokemon. So he brings in Amoonguss again. And here I see the perfect opportunity to go for Protect and Lunar Blessing. So we can at least get our Ursaluna healed up a little bit in case he wanted to go for that Leaf Storm. And he just went for Pollen Puff into his own Heatran. I guess he was super worried about like an Earthquake or something. But I wasn't going to go for that. I switch out of the Iron Hands here, predicting a potential Spore into the Cresselia slot. But he just goes for Heat Wave. And we get a Facade off, which Amoonguss actually survives. Absolutely insane. I guess since we're not max attack, that's probably why he survived. But we do a lot of damage onto him. And then here I do predict a Protect from the Heatran. So I just wanted to go for an Earthquake in case he didn't. Switch back out into Cresselia. You know, pick up the KO on Amoonguss. And now that it's just Heatran, I was like, okay, he's got to use his Terra. He finally commits his Terra. So I do Protect and go for the Lunar Blessing. Heal us back up. Make sure that we can survive another Heat Wave on the next turn. And obviously we get protected here. Take no damage, and then our Flame Orb activates again. So Cresselia just goes for Ice Beam, does a decent chunk to the Heatran, and he goes for Terra Blast, which I guess was his best option, but it wasn't enough, unfortunately. So we do end up picking that game up, and this is a great example of how you can have Trick Room for like the late game, and it can still work out for you. You don't necessarily need to go for it right off the bat. In fact, I think it's better on this team to save it for the late game. So that's a great example of a game where we use Trick Room to the fullest extent. And let's check out another one. So another standard team. We've got, you know, again, Fire, Water, Grass Core, Chien-Pao, Flutter Mane, and Tornadus. This is stuff that you're going to be seeing everywhere on ladder, whether you're playing Pokemon Showdown, whether you're playing like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the actual game. But yeah, let's check out what we go for here. So here we did lead Cresselia Urshifu. Now this is a bit of a weird lead, because I was like, we can go for Trick Room, or we can just straight up attack, but I was like, he probably has Taunt. So let's just go for an attacking move. I did switch out my Urshifu, because I didn't want to get put to sleep. And I figured I could Lunar Blessing that away if I needed to. So we do make the right reads here. We get a Lucky Freeze on the Tornadus as well. And then unfortunately we do Facade into the Amoonguss. But he switches out into Chien-Pao here. I probably should have gone for Moonblast realistically, but I didn't think he'd go for that. Safety Goggles helps us actually break the Sash there because Amoonguss went for Rage Powder. An important thing to note here, we did go for a Shadow Claw into the Amoonguss because I was actually predicting a switch into Flutter Mane. I really wanted to Facade, but I was like, the Amoonguss isn't doing much here. We have Safety Goggles. We know that like he can't Spore our Ursaluna because we're already burned. So let's just go for a Shadow Claw. Like, what's the worst that can happen? We deal. I think we did like 56% there, or 52%. But yeah, he's Rocky Helmet, so we do take some chip, unfortunately. But let's click play here. So we shake off the Taunt, Terra Ghost here, and that's why it was important, because I was like, okay, on the off chance he goes for Sacred Sword or something, trying to predict like another Terra, let's just go for Terra Ghost. And this does make us vulnerable to Sucker Punch here, but that's kind of why I swapped out here, and he did go for Sucker Punch in fact. So Tornadus unfortunately still frozen, but we are able to get a Trick Room off, and then Chien-Pao protects, but in this position I don't think the opponent has enough offense to actually win the game, so we're able to pick up the Tornadus with a Wild Charge there, and then all that's left obviously here is Chien-Pao and his last Pokemon, Flutter Mane. So he is Booster Speed, which definitely doesn't help him, but he does protect Flutter Mane. He went for the double protect here onto Chien-Pao. Unfortunately it didn't work, we're able to pick that up, and then, you know, with Trick Room still being up, there's no way he can survive anything, so Terra Fairy not going to help him at all. I think he should have used his Flutter Mane earlier in the match before we got up Trick Room. Because it looks like he wanted the speed control for sure by taunting like Cresselia. And then again, that's always risky to do because some of them do run Mental Herb. But yeah, mine's got Safety Goggles. I think that's probably the better item for it currently. So let's look at another match here. We've got kind of an interesting team from the opponent. Cresselia is the only like new Pokemon, I would say, like new Reg D Pokemon, but the rest of his team is pretty interesting. I don't really know what Swalot does, and I haven't seen any of the electric bird, I forget the name right now, but Kilowattrel, right. I really haven't seen any of that Pokemon since we've had the Genies introduced into the format, because I generally think they're just better at setting up Tailwind, speed control, things like that. So yeah, let's click play here. We did have open team sheets in this one, so I did know his sets and he did know mine. But I decided to lead Fluttermane and Dragonite just to go for like a fast offensive mode, and I really didn't want to get burned here, so I was like, you know what? Let's do some damage into Cresselia, and let's try and get a Stomping Tantrum off. But I figure not a lot of Arcanines like will run Will-O-Wisp. I think some of them will run Snarl currently, but we still do a ton of damage there. And then here I did predict a Protect from the Arcanine, and I got that read right. He got a Lunar Blessing off. I figured he wanted to do something to that effect. And yeah, here I was like, you know what? I don't want my Iron Hands to get burned in case he does have Will-O-Wisp. I totally forgot to look at the Arcanine during open team sheet, but we went for a Shadow Ball here, and we doubled the Garchomp, but we didn't get much done there. And here I was like, okay, he's got to go for like Terra Steel or Terra Fire or something. Turns out it was Terra Steel. I figured he would Earthquake because he's in the perfect position to do so, and we have a Flying type, so we can definitely take care of that. And then in this position, this part was important. So I knew that Dragonite has a lower base speed than Garchomp, so there's probably no way that we would be outspeeding him, and I don't think he was Choice Scarf looking at the team sheet. So here I was like, okay, I need to hit an Icy Wind here and a Stomping Tantrum, otherwise I think we lose. Like, genuinely, I think we lose, unless we go for like a Terra on our Iron Hands and knock out Garchomp that way, but that might not be the best spot to like do it in. So here I was like, I need to hit an Icy Wind. So we go for Icy Wind with Fluttermane, we do hit, and we do drop his speed, making us faster than his Garchomp, and then we get a Stomping Tantrum off and pick up the KO. So that was absolutely perfect. We do go down the Rough Skin and Rocky Helmet, which is crazy because I think we were at like 7 or 27%. And he just gets a Moonblast. Unfortunately, he did get a special attack drop, and now my Fluttermane's like at 0.5 special attack, which is super unfortunate, but like in this situation, I don't want to switch it out because I don't really have a great switch in. I think my last Pokemon here was Ursaluna. Or was it I think it was Cresselia, sorry. Yeah, it was Cresselia. But I really didn't want to switch out and take like a really strong Make It Rain, so I was like, alright, Fluttermane, get some damage while you can, and yeah, we don't really need you anymore, so. He went for Ally Switch, which is super interesting, and I was trying to Shadow Ball the Gholdengo, but we did get a special defense drop onto the Cresselia. Make It Rain, obviously going to KO here, and then do a pretty decent chunk into our Iron Hands as well. And yeah, we went for Wild Charge, doing more damage on the Cresselia. Here we brought in our Urshifu, and I figured he would probably switch out his Gholdengo at this point, just to try and get an Intimidate off, but Intimidate really doesn't matter when you're, you know, hitting with a critical hit every time. And then all he's got left here is the Gholdengo, so I think the previous turn we made an excellent play there, and that's kind of what won us the game. I didn't want to attack into the Gholdengo, so I was like, yeah, let's just get rid of this Cresselia just in case he switches or something. But I really don't think it mattered. I think Urshifu would have cleaned up in the end game there, and we still did have Focus Sash, so that was super important to have in the end. But yeah, that was a great game, so let's move on to the next one here. The next one, we've got a hard Trick Room team. So he's got like 5 Pokemon on his team that are incredibly slow, and then Meowscarada. But it's kind of weird to see Satitan, because you really don't see this Pokemon very often, and mostly you just see it on slow teams, snow teams. But this is a slow team, and you can make use of it because it does have like a pretty low speed stat, huge attack stat. So I guess it's a Pokemon that can work under Trick Room, but you have better options. So yeah, regardless here, I was like, okay, Trick Room's probably going to be going up from one of us. So let's play to that effect. And we did have the opponent reject open team sheets, unfortunately. But it is what it is. I think most Indeedee Armarouge players will do that. So yeah, in this scenario, I was like, okay, let's go for Terra Dark. Let's go for something strong. I really wanted to get a Follow Me off. A Wicked Blow off into his Armarouge, but he went for Follow Me, and then Trick Room went up. I do protect Urshifu here because I was really worried about like a potential Psychic move coming out into both my Pokemon. But yeah, we weren't able to pick up the KO onto Indeedee here, and he does take us down to Sash on the next turn, but this is totally fine because I was able to get the Wicked Blow off into Indeedee, which means that I can now Shadow Ball the Armarouge safely, with his special defense drop, he's already down 2 Pokemon, so this is perfect. So, in this position, Iron Hands Ursaluna. Also interesting to note, he actually has Booster Energy on his Iron Hands for his attack. Now, that's not something you see very common, but I definitely think it's going to pick up more in usage. It's just, Assault Vest is such a good item for the Iron Hands that, I don't know, Booster Energy might not be the best there. But, you know, being able to boost your attack means you're going to be healing more with Drain Punch. You're going to be throwing off people's calculations. And, yeah, I think it's a good item overall for Iron Hands. So, he does protect with Ursaluna here, and then he gets a Wild Charge off into Flutter Mane. We survive on 3 HP, and then we go for Dazzling Gleam here. And then with one more turn of Trick Room here, I believe I did protect here on the Flutter Mane. And given that the opponent rejected open team sheets, I didn't know like what he was going to do next. So he actually went for double Drain Punch into my Ursaluna. So he just straight up KO'd it. And that completely caught me off guard. But unfortunately, I didn't know that he had that. So I was like, alright, let's bring in Urshifu. He can't protect. He's protecting in front of an Urshifu, which obviously my ability on Steam Fist will still attack you through Protect. So we pick up the one-hit KO on Ursaluna with Close Combat. And then, yeah, he gets a Wild Charge off, but really it's just his Iron Hands here, and we do still have Cresselia in the back. So we're able to clean this game up pretty well. And, yeah, I really didn't feel the need to set up Trick Room of my own, because I was like, he's going to want to do that. So, yeah, that's just the way that you can play into opposing Trick Room sometimes. Just try and take advantage of them setting up Trick Room as well. And, yeah, let's move on to the next match. So, this opponent had a really interesting team. First of all, I thought it was super cute with, like, the color coordination. It's all, like, pink, blue, and yellow. But, yeah, it's a super interesting team. Articuno you don't see outside of Snow too often, but I was really baffled as to what he could possibly go for. And, I figured Raichu would come out to play with, like, Fake Out and stuff. And I figure Azumarill is pretty good into, like, most of my team with Play Rough and Liquidation, or whatever moves he has, Aqua Jet, things like that. He's probably going to be doing a lot of damage into most of my Pokemon, so I was like, I need a decent counter into that. But I did, the opponent does lead Cresselia and Amoonguss, and I led Urshifu plus Cresselia. So, Cresselia Ditto here, he does switch out into Azumarill, you know, wisely enough, and unfortunately he does Spore our Urshifu here, but that's okay. At this point I was like, I don't want to switch Urshifu out just in case he does attack into that slot with like a Play Rough or something, and he did indeed do that, so I was like, alright, let's hope for like a turn 2 wake up. But he does Pollen Puff his own Azumarill back to perfect health. And then I believe he Aqua Jets on this next turn, so we do lose Urshifu, but I didn't want to lose any of our other Pokemon in the back. And yeah, he's playing really well so far. He does go Terra Ghost on Cresselia. Now this is important because I also have Terra Ghost, but I also have Shadow Claw, so now it's kind of a Trick Room battle, like a battle for speed here. It's really weird that he had Rain Dance as well, but I was like, okay, I need to get rid of this Azumarill, otherwise it's going to be a huge problem later on. So I made it a point of taking Azumarill out first, and then Lunar Blessing, look at that, healing us up back to perfect HP pretty much, aside from like 1 to 3%. And then I do go for Shadow Claw, it does 69% into Cresselia, so that was super nice. And then he gets rid of Trick Room by putting it back to normal. So I guess he wanted to outspeed here and get a Lunar Blessing off, but I didn't find it all that important. He tries to go for Spore, closed team sheet, doesn't work on Cresselia because of safety goggles. He goes for Rage Powder here, and I didn't quite expect that. I thought he would go for a Pollen Puff potentially into his Cresselia, but you know, that's probably the better play by the opponent. I go for a Lunar Blessing here. Now this is a bit of a weird play because I forgot that we're not in Trick Room, so I do heal my burn, which takes away Guts, and that actually allows Cresselia to survive here on 1% HP, which is crazy. I probably should have made a different play, and in that case I would have been able to KO Cresselia, I think. But yeah, he's desperately trying to keep his Pokemon alive, but Facade just one-shots the Bruxish, so at this point he really doesn't have enough offense left, like in the endgame with Cresselia and Amoonguss. And we're able to just clean up the game there. Cresselia is an absolute monster. If you're not using this Pokemon, I highly recommend you do try a team out with it. It's incredibly good. Like, I know it didn't make a huge splash at Worlds, but this Pokemon is incredibly strong. So, a couple final games here. I think the last 3 are fairly quick. So let's go through this one. Let's just commentate what happened here. Not too much need for in-depth analysis on this one. He did have the potential for speed control here. And he went for Protect plus Tailwind right off the bat. He wanted the speed control, which is honestly a pretty good play, doubling his speed. But in this position, I really wasn't too scared. I was like, okay, I can go to the Dragonite, because I really knew he was probably going to go for Surging Strikes, given that it was a Rapid Strike Urshifu. So I was like, I don't want Flutter Mane to drop right off the bat, especially if he goes for Water Terra. In this position, he did miss Bleak Wind Storm, which is pretty important, but we're able to one-shot the Urshifu with a Wild Charge, so that was super clutch there. And then he brings in Bundle, which I predicted would probably go for like a Ghost Terra like after the Protect turn here, given that he did Protect to kind of scout out what I wanted to do. But we did go for Drain Punch, and then this next turn I went for Wild Charge, which probably wasn't the best play overall. I should have probably gone for Drain Punch, but I really thought he would go for Ghost Terra on the Bundle. But look at that, Hydro Pump only did 28%, so it really didn't matter in the end. Although we do take like hefty recoil there. And now we are susceptible to being taken out by the Brambleghast, but Brambleghast does take out our Iron Hands, but given that we were able to take out the Tornadus there before he could act, I really didn't think that, you know, we were in too bad of a position for the end game here. 1v3, he goes for Phantom Force as well, and then I switch on to Dragonite just in case he did target the Flutter Mane slot. And I go for Shadow Claw and just completely picks up the Brambleghast, so that was a really great game. Brambleghast I feel like is a kind of a meme Pokemon, but people are picking up in usage, and it did, I think, have a showing at Worlds as well. But yeah, let's go into these last 3 games here. This is a super cool team, really fast team, and really fast and offensive team from the opponent here. I believe we did have open team sheets as well, which is why I knew that Regieleki was going to be Focus Sash and Tornadus was going to be Covert Cloak, so I was like, alright, let's fake that thing out. Let's set up Trick Room. He's going to set up his own Tailwind. And yeah, at this point, like, he wasted his turn 1. And we were able to pick up the KO and get up a Trick Room. So yeah, in this endgame, there really wasn't much you could do. I think the opponent lost, like, on turn 1. So I was like, you know what? We'll take it. That's kind of the risk of running open team sheets, because it makes you a lot more predictable. But it is what it is. And even Earthquake there, look at that, doing only 40% to Iron Hands. This thing is incredibly tanky. And yeah, in the end here, I was like, I know he's choice specs, probably modest Terra Fire, Eruption, Typhlosion, so we're going to be taking a ton of damage, which is why I was like, okay, I need to go for Water Terra. But at this point, you know, we didn't really need the critical hit there on Drain Punch, but it was super nice to have. We probably could have KO'd him 1 turn earlier, but yeah, overall, we pick up the win here, and open team sheet game, definitely a lot more helpful when you know your opponent's sets. But yeah, 2 games to go here. We've got one more, which was a pretty standard team as well. I think we won this one actually really quickly. And the opponent did reject open team sheets, even though I, you know, asked for open team sheets, but it is what it is. He gets the Intimidate off here, and he actually went for Grass Terra on Urshifu, which is really cool. I don't see that too often, but it's definitely a good adaptation to the current meta. And he unfortunately one-shots our Flutter Mane, and we weren't able to pick up the KO with Urshifu onto his own, given that he went for Grass Terra, but we were able to Sucker Punch the next turn, and this was Dragon Dance Gyarados. Given that he already went for his Terra, I was like, okay, perfect opportunity to just bring in Iron Hands, go for the Wild Charge. There's really nothing you can do other than switch out, and in that case, you know, he would be losing his boosts. But yeah, we pretty much won this game on that second turn once we were able to KO both his Pokemon. And unfortunately, he does get a Nasty Plot off here, which is a little scary, but we still have Urshifu, so like, there's nothing you can really do, given that we're faster. Like, Nasty Plot Gholdengos won't be able to outspeed any Urshifu, unless you're not running enough speed, but we are running enough speed, like, fortunately. Jolly max speed, in fact. And yeah, the opponent just does forfeit there. That was a 5-turn game. Absolutely incredible game. And then final match here, really interesting team. I actually did feature a team like this on my channel when I was playing Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. It's the Double Genie strat, and you can go for Eerie Impulse into your own Enamorus. But here, I was like, okay, he might want to, like, Trick Room off the bat, although the rest of his team is fast, so I was like, I don't know what, you know, the general strategy of his team is, and I don't think we had, or did we have open team sheets? Yeah, we actually did have, or no, we didn't have open team sheets, because he rejected open team sheets, or I think he just didn't respond. But here I was able to go for Icy Wind, and luckily Outrage just one-shotted the Indeedee. So here I was like, okay, we're locked into Outrage, unfortunately, but it's going to go into the other slot, I believe, if Dragonite does survive, but our Dragonite did not survive, so it is what it is. I was like, let's stay in here, let's not go for Icy Wind, because that would actually give him a boost, given that he's contrary. And then, yeah, he went for Steel Terra, but it really didn't matter, because we were able to take him out with a Shadow Ball. That's why I didn't go for, like, our Dazzling Gleam or a Fairy move. And yeah, overall, I think this team is great. Again, if you just look at the general strategy, it's going to be a hard Trick Room team with Ursaluna to heal it up. Things like Lunar Blessing are super valuable in supporting Ursaluna and having it, stick around, be a Pokemon with good longevity. And yeah, the rest of the team, you either have the fast mode with like Flutter Mane, Urshifu, Dragonite, or you do have like Cress, Iron Hands, Ursaluna. So yeah, overall, I think this team is excellent. Ursaluna is a great Pokemon and you guys should definitely use it. But if you guys did enjoy, please like and subscribe as well. We'll keep the content coming for you guys in the coming days. And yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for today. Hope you have a good one. Peace.